Hello and welcome to the Networking Partners Spotlight Show. I'm your host, Jimmy Curtin. I'm founder and CEO of Next Level Sales Performance. We help companies accelerate their sales revenue and move to the next level. So today I'd like to introduce my special guest. His name is Lonny Coffey, and Lonny is in the mortgage loan business. And with that, I'm going to ask Lonny to introduce himself, talk a little bit about his company and what he does and his background. So Lonny, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy, for having me. Actually, I'm doing two things now. And the first is in the mortgage loan business. I've been doing that my whole career. And I won't tell you when I got out of college because I don't want to date myself quite that long, but have been in it mostly in leadership in mortgage companies. And most recently, I have a mortgage loan originator license. And I do originations for really a pretty small client base. I don't try to do a whole gob of business. I'm one of not the top salespeople I used to be, but not anymore. And then in October of last year, I got interested in communication, and I actually became let me get my notes up here. I actually became a licensed life languages coach. That was in October of 2019. In October of 2020, ramped that up and became a life language certified CIQ consultant. Sorry. And what we do is we analyze communication and we bring relationship equity to our clients. I define relationship equity kind of easy is if people are communicating better with each other, then you're going to have some benefits of that, like more efficiencies, less turnover. People are just going to get along better, and that means that your bottom line is going to go up. And I've just always kind of loved better communication and struggled with how to find that. And this tool called the KLLP Life Languages Profile is just an amazing tool. So I'm doing that and have been doing some coaching with that for the last year.
Right, right. Well, tell me how does that really, how's that applied to your past as far as having that tool?
Well, I've always kind of been frustrated with communication. In the good old days, what I call the good old days, and I said I wasn't gonna date myself, here I go. You picked up the phone and you called somebody, or if they called you, you got a message, you called them back. That was the most efficient kind of communication because you could be more honest and so forth. When they came out with voicemail and email, I actually did some speaking and I just titled myself, I Hate Voicemail. Because voicemail allowed people to kind of hide behind their voicemail. If they wanted to call you back, they did. If they didn't, and then their message on voicemail would say, "Hey, leave a message. I'll call you right back," and then they wouldn't call you back. So
Right.
you leave them another message, and they said they'd call you right back. They didn't call you back, so now you were left that are they going to call me or not? They're lying to me, or then what is their motive? Why don't they want to talk to me? And I'm kind of interesting like that I just expect a lot in communication. Email is the same way, where people will answer an email and they'll answer half the questions you had in the email and so forth. So it's just not efficient communication. And just in my past, trying to talk to people one-on-one, I would be able to talk to some people all day long, and others I would not be able to talk about anything ever, and never
Right.
figured that out. And that always puzzled me why I got along so good with some. In business, I actually ran into people who just didn't want to talk to me. And it's because the way I communicated wasn't the way they wanted to get communication, especially when they thought I was trying to get in their business, something like that. So it's been a little bit of a ride and something that I've always kind of studied and been interested in doing.
Yeah, it sounds like this tool is really giving you something now that you can reach out to the prospect and understand how they want to communicate to you.
That's right. And that's some of the actual coaching I've done is for salespeople. And we might get into that a little bit later if we have time. But yeah, the quicker you can make a connection with somebody, and the more effective that connection is, and it's more easy of talking to them. It's just going to be easier to sell them something or convince them of something, or get along better with the coworker, or if you need to work with the coworker and you've got a good idea, and based on what we call their profile is that you're going to have a difficulty in communicating with them, and you know how they want to receive that communication, and you can make a purposed effort to communicate it in the way they would be pleased to hear it.
Right.
And so becoming self-aware of the way I communicated makes me a lot more effective, because when I want something, I'm gonna move it pretty fast, and I'm gonna try to get it, and that scares people. That I I didn't know I did that, but knowing now that I do that, I take a completely different approach and move that ball a lot more effectively into my court, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does. So who do you think really benefits from coaching, the coaching that you do with life languages?
Well, it's just what I say is, the whole world is our potential client, because anybody that can communicate better at any level with anyone is going to have a better outcome than if they can't do that. So I've coached executives who just are like me. They didn't realize how hard it was for people to talk to them. And once they go through our program, they understand why they can scare people, and some people won't approach them. You can talk to individuals in sales or in just other relationships that they have. It has helped me and my wife communicate more effectively. I've been married almost 50 years and realized why it was so difficult for my wife and I to communicate together with this tool.
Right.
Basically, neither one of us is interested in anything the other one is talking about. And it's just, and it's obvious the way our nonverbal communication, as far as companies go, it's just an amazing tool when people can understand why someone is like they are, and communicate the way they do. And our tool, it just gives you all the answers. I call it a cheat sheet, to where once that you're aware of what somebody else's profile is, you can do communication mapping for the whole company.
Right.
And with this communication IQ uh, chart we have, uh, you can just look and say, okay, if they communicate like this is what they need from me. They need to know that I care about them.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know that I'm going to figure out what their motive is. It's a very robust, amazing tool. So it works for everybody. We're doing more in corporate coaching than we are in anything else now.
Right.
But it'll work. And people getting married, I think it would be absolutely the best thing that they could ever do,
Yeah.
is to learn this stuff up front, so that they don't have to go through it and just find it out by hard knocks.
Yeah.
Like you and me did probably.
I would completely agree with you. I actually have to confess, I took the professional profile back late last summer, or actually in the summer of last year. And when I got the results back, which came back almost immediately, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it nailed me absolutely. I recognized myself. I could have taken the name off of it and just read the profile, and I would have recognized myself.
Every single person I've talked to that's taken the profile has had the same uh, reaction to it, including me. In fact, I printed mine out the first time I did it, and I was just going like, "Oh man, this is true. Good gosh, this is just like me. I can't believe." And once you learn to analyze that all the way through, like the communication indicators, you know
Uh,
so much about yourself, that you didn't before. Uh, I never saw myself as a really introverted person, but I would always go into a group setting that was just social, where I didn't really have anything that I needed to talk to anybody about, or I wasn't trying to control the room. And I was just standing in the corner.
right.
I just couldn't get into conversation that I didn't want to start, or be in control of. And that's not a good thing if you're out there trying to impress people at a mixer or whatnot. And if I wasn't interested in what somebody was saying, it was obvious that I wasn't interested, because I would be looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
I'd be daydreaming about something else. If you're trying to sell somebody something, that's not a good thing to do. So I purposely have to overcome myself and just don't allow myself to do that now that I know it's so obvious and know how easy it is for me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great explanation. So, do you have any stories or anything you want to tell us about any coaching that you've recently done and how that went?
Yeah, I've coached just as kind of a value added to my mortgage business. Some of the referral clients I've got are realtors, obviously, and I will ask them if they'd like to do some coaching with me. And a couple of them have taken me up on that. And one in particular has been one of the top 10 agents in Texas for probably 30 years. And she took the profile and we got to talking. And I said, "So what do you do when you go in and list a house?" And she is a she is a mover responder. And what that means in life language is jargon, is that she likes to move things along as quickly as she can.
Right.
She's gonna take over and try to get to the point that she wants to be really quickly. Well, she would approach her listings like that, and she explained to me that she'd walk in the door and basically just meet the people, and then she'd say something like, "Well, I'm going to just take a look around here and see what we need to do to sell this house as quickly as we can." And if you've ever listed your house with anybody, a realtor will want to stage your house properly,
Right.
and they will do things. And I think it's great, that they do it. Say, "Look, we've got to take these pictures of the family pictures off the wall because we don't want people looking at your family pictures. We want them looking at the house.
Right.
And we're going to have to get rid of that old piece of furniture over there because it doesn't look good in the room. It makes it look small and so forth." So she just run through the house like that, and she'd say all the right things, and she would not understand why somebody might not like that. She would be the point that everybody should like it just like she wants it. Everybody should be congruent with her thoughts, right?
Right.
So she would sit down with them and she'd just get out the listing agreement and says, "I see that you want to get this done as quickly as you can, so sign here." And a lot of them do.
Yep.
She's that good.
Yep.
But the ones that didn't looked at her like she was crazy, or one of them might look at her like, man, they were ready, and the other spouse would look at her like they didn't like at all what she was doing, or her either.
Right.
And what we did through the coaching was I showed her how to determine what language was probably prominent with that person. Like there's a language called producer, there's a language called responder. A producer, one of the things that they would be the people you'd walk in their house and it would be decorated to a T.
Yep.
I mean, it looked like a professional decorator had done it. And they're not going to like it much when you tell them they've got to move their grandma's 1920 whatever out of the house, because
Right.
that's special to them. And I got anybody that walks in that house ought to see that that's special to them. And so she'd look at her like she didn't like that idea, right? She'd lose her while she's gaining the other spouse.
Right.
If there was pictures on the wall and she suggested they take them off, and the particular language was responder, that one of the two would talk about, they're awfully offended when you start talking about taking their pictures down off the wall.
Sure.
If they're what we call a contemplator, they want to think through things a lot. They don't want to make a quick decision, and if you press them to make a quick decision, then you're going to lose.
Yep.
And so by doing just a few things and asking a few questions, I was able to let her know how she needed to approach the couple. And she has done much better with her listings, or she runs into a lot of contemplators where instead of trying to get them to sign the thing, she'll say, "My particular style is I like to move this along as quickly as I can because that's what I think that you probably want. But let me ask you something. Are you going to need more time to think about this? Because I don't want to hurry if you are." And those people that would be contemplators, they'll immediately come alive because she has been the only one that has asked them that question, probably.
Right.
Or if they're a responder where they're actually have all the family pictures and the nice decorating or whatever, then she will engage the person that would be doing that by saying, "Hey, who's the decorator in the family?" Then she'd say, "This is amazing. This is amazing. And even though we need to stage your house properly. I don't want to think that your house isn't just the greatest in the world. And you may disagree with what I want, and that's okay. If they're a responder, she would say, "Hey, I noticed a lot of pictures of fans. How many kids do you have?" You
Right.
know, if you've ever talked to somebody about that and they're a responder, the first thing they do is they'll start talking for a half an hour, start getting all their pictures out and everything else. If you ask me, I'm a first language mover. If I have any kids, I'd say, yeah, I have two. So how much do you think I can get for the house? When can I sell it?
Right.
You know, I'm interested and I care, but that's not the language I prefer in that particular situation. And she has become a lot more effective in her listing presentations, and therefore, you know, representing them as buyers too, because she hasn't offended one of them.
Right.
You know that she's warmed up to both of them.
Yeah, that's great. That really says a lot about communication IQ and about life languages, and just knowing that information and being able to through a few questions, gain that knowledge of the prospect. That's a tremendous tool.
Yeah, I've coached another guy that was a title rep. Uh, Title companies basically sell the same services at the same price, and so on the street, if they like the rep better, and the reps talk to them longer, then they're liable to get some business. But what I've taught him to do is the same thing basically, and just say, what would you like to see in your title company that you may not be getting where you're at? And if he sees them as a shaper, which is a big planner, if he's picked up that in him, and we can show him how to do that, he would say, are you interested in the plan that we do before we, engage a buyer, the
Right.
process that we go through? Or do you find that your title companies are leaving out too much communication, or are they not doing enough communication with your clients? Ours try to do what the client seems to be responding to. Do you think that would be good in the title company? He's given them something else to think about just besides, that he as a rep is buying them more lunches, or coming by their office with gifts sooner. It gives them something else to talk about, and
Sure.
it's helpful for him, I believe.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So let me ask you one final question. So how would you sum up, the opportunities as far as an audience for coaching using communication IQ?
Well, again, just it works. It works for everybody, uh, and I think if you are having issues with communication in your company, if you're an executive and it just doesn't feel right, that the culture of your company just seems a little flat, or you get in a meeting and everybody's afraid to say something, even a question you ask, that may be because they find that that particular executive responds the wrong way if somebody speaks up. Uh, and so for companies that have issues, certainly it's just amazing. There's just all kinds of benefits to it.
I know that it's not at all unusual. In fact, I think it is the normal thing that when a company has almost any kind of problem, it can almost always be followed back to where it is a communication problem. I didn't know what to say to what you said to me, or I said it wrong, but it seems like it's always a problem with communication. So I can certainly see how utilizing a tool like this could improve that.
Yep.
And if we keep our employees happy because we're communicating at the level they want to communicate at, then we have less turnover. So there's definitely some dollars there.
Yeah, and if I've got a little bit of time, I can give you a couple of pretty good examples of
Super.
one that was my mistake. We've just signed a contract with a big company in Dallas, and the executive that we're working with, I said, I know how you are, because he's the same languages as me. And I said, I believe I can keep you from making the mistakes that I have made out there. And he just kind of looked at me, and I said, seriously, because you're saying some things that I would have said myself.
Right.
But I communicated well with the people that I communicated well with, and they were the people I spent time with. Right. But I
Right.
had my main guy wasn't a guy that I communicated well with, because his languages were different. He was different, and he was better at the stuff I wasn't good at. I
Right.
was better at the stuff I was good at. And that we were amazingly successful. But what I didn't realize was that he didn't appreciate the fact that I moved so quickly into stuff without engaging him. And, I'm a guy that thinks, well, if I think it's right, and I'm just going to risk it. And that was hard on our relationship, but he wouldn't approach me about it. So he was my top guy.
Right.
Another lady that worked there, she paid our bills, and she was perfect. Man, if I asked her to do something, she was going to do it. She never made a mistake that I know of. And so, because I didn't engage her very often because I didn't need to, I trusted her and she did a perfect job. She was someone that her languages required that she needed to know that I cared. And because I never engaged her, she finally came to me one day and she said, "Did I do something wrong, Lonnie? Are you mad at me or something?" And I just was like dumbfounded. I said, "What are you talking about?" But she had information that I knew that she was afraid to approach me with because, I scared her a little bit, probably not intentionally. And she thought I didn't care about what she thought. So she just never bothered telling me. And it was dreadful. So now, knowing the different languages, if I'd have known it 35 years ago when I was really in management like that, if I'd have known that, I would have just set up those communication meetings and so forth and just communicated with all my reports in the way they would want to, and our relationships would have been a lot better. And they would have been able to talk to me about things that were problems that I just didn't know about. Another example is just with somebody that I couldn't communicate with at all, that they just weren't servicing my group. And because I had a better way of solving a problem that was affecting my people that worked for me, the salespeople. And because I could never break through and communicate with her, she just thought I was trying to mind her business, and she didn't appreciate it. So she just shut me out completely.
Sure.
I told the guy that I reported to, I said, if we can't solve this, the people that report to me, they're all going to want to quit, and I'm going to have to quit before they do, because I really am not anybody without them. Right. I'm kind of the guy that's the leader, but they're the people that are bringing the goods.
Absolutely.
And he didn't do anything. And I told the guy that owned the company, that was the CEO of the company, I told him the same thing. And neither one of them did anything about it. And we left there, me and my group left there about a year later, and we were producing about $250 million a year for that company. And it was all because I couldn't get through to this person. It was all on a little communication deal. Their voicemail message, they were in the closing department, said, "If you'll fax us your documents, we'll call you right back." And they didn't call right back because at that time, the fax machines had about a 4-hour memory in them, and they didn't come out as a printer for that long. So, and people were waiting at the title company to get their money, and those people were mad.
Oh boy.
Effectively, our instruction said, "Call us after you fax these and we'll give you a funding number." And so the sellers were waiting. I tried to get them to just change their message to say, "We're real busy here at the mortgage company. It may be several hours before we call you back. Please be patient with us and we'll get to you as quick as we can." Those people might not have wanted to hear that, but at least they'd accept it.
Yep. At least they knew what was going on. Yeah.
And then you undersell and over deliver. You call them back in 3 and they think you're great, where otherwise we were losing customers over this, and I couldn't get to anybody. Yeah. With this tool, I would have known how to better recognize that person, and I would have figured it out. If the executives in that company knew how I communicated and knew how that management person communicated, they would have made sure that problem was handled up front where they wouldn't have that problem. I'll swear that would be true.
Yeah, I believe you. Absolutely. Well, Lonnie, I really appreciate you doing the show with us today. I want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody how they can contact you. So if you would do that.
Well, yeah, if you have any of these issues, or I can help you with anything, I'm at 817-929-9119. My mortgage website is lonnycoffey.com. It's spelled Lonny, Lonny, and Coffey, coffee like a drink, except EY.com. And if you have any interest in talking about enhancing your communication for all the benefits it'll bring you, you can get us at world-classcommunication.com. And I've teamed up with a young lady named Sue Cadu, and she's amazing, and she's a coach as well. So the information is there, and we just love to talk to you.
That's great. And I certainly would tell people and highly recommend that they talk to you and particularly about the communication part, because it is it is so true how that can help your business. So
Well,
anyway, I want to thank you.
I'm fired up about it.
Good. I want to thank you so much for being part of the show today, and look forward to doing some work with you in the future.
Okay, Jimmy, appreciate it very much.
Thank you.